Hey, welcome, welcome. I can see the first few people are joining us.
Yeah, welcome everyone. I see a few familiar names here as well. Welcome, Syed. Nice to have you with us. What you can do right now is if you go to the chat box, type in where you're joining us from, and you'll see it pop up on the map next to Jan's head just there. So it's really interesting to see where is everyone joining us from today.
I'm gonna add myself in there as well. Oh, and we already have a big spread from west coast of the US, Seattle,
Margaret from
Danville,
Ireland.
California.
We have Tatiana in the house. Welcome.
Hello,
Frank, nice to have you
Tatiana.
with us. Joshua representing Bronx, New York there. We also have someone from Portugal as well. Quite a few
Nice.
from Europe here. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm curious. So this is me. This is where I am, near Stuttgart. I can see there's Angela in Munich, Said in Dortmund.
We have Khalida from Iraq. Welcome. We have two people from Portugal now. Pedro as well.
Yeah,
Welcome, Pedro. We have Lena from Germany.
nice. Somebody. Lena in Berlin.
Only
Got
only
a
one
whole
one of us from the
sister
UK.
in New York. I guess that makes sense. That Lux and your team is somewhere down there.
Oh, yes.
Across the
Okay.
US as well. Fantastic. We always like to get someone from down under, but I think it's a bit late for everyone in Oz.
Yes. Let's see. And we have somebody in India too.
Excellent. All right. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. We have Jan with us. I'm really excited to have Jan. He's a trainer, facilitator, and an experienced designer. He's driven by this simple belief that real deep connections beat small talk every single time. And during the pandemic, Jan taught thousands of trainers, facilitators, and educators on how to recreate that magic of being in person, but in a virtual environment, because as we all know, trying to get that engagement and that interaction online, it can be very difficult. Currently, he's dedicating his time and energy to writing his first book, so we're all looking forward to that. It's going to be titled IceMELTERS, in which he advocates ditching these traditional icebreakers, and he's going to be sharing his framework to increase engagement, building that trust and fostering deeper connections, and doing all of that without making people cringe. So with that, Jan, I will hand over to you and take it away, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter, and thanks everyone for joining. And I also love that a few people have their cameras on. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Pedro. Hello, Joanna. Hello, Milena. I want to start with a question. This is, of course, going to be interactive. We're using Stream Alive as a tool to also create some engagement here. And to start us off, I would love to build a little word cloud. And for this, I'll put a question up on my screen. I want you to answer the question, ideally in like 1 to 2 words. So look at the screen right now. My question is this. When you think about hearing the words, let's start with an icebreaker. What do you think about? So again, in 1 to 2 words, go to the chat in Zoom and just let me know what you think. And I see some great words already coming up. Let's have a look if this works over here. Ooh, awkward is a big one. Eye roll. Yes, I get that as well. Cheesy, cringe, shiver, forced. This again. Cheesy, I think I already said that. Shiver. How about no? but also know each other. There seems to be a few words in here that are not super negative, which I'm not sure where playdate would fall, if that is, or maybe it's cheesy playdate. Not sure if that's, no, I think it was just playdate. But I also see important, unnatural. Ugh, oh no, why? Okay, my own relationship with icebreakers is actually a little bit of a love hate relationship. When I was growing up, I used to be a very shy person. I used to be the person that was in your class, but you didn't even realize it because I would never raise my hand. I was always very quiet. And I now call myself a recovering shy person, a recovering shy guy, because I realized that there's so much benefit when I step outside of my comfort zone and I am in groups where my voice matters, where I can contribute. But depending on the group, even today, there's some places where I feel like, okay, I can be myself. I can have the courage to raise my hand and say something. There's other places where I still feel like, oh, I don't really know if I fit in, if I belong here. So when I was a participant in icebreakers growing up, it usually was all of the words that you shared: awkward, uncomfortable. I felt like I was being forced to be the center of attention, where I would rather just be invisible and hide. But the thing is this, I also benefited a lot from activities that helped me just get beyond small talk really quickly. Because if there's one thing worse than being stuck in an icebreaker that I didn't like, it was being stuck in small talk and talking about the weather and sports and how bad traffic was getting there. I really value deep connections and deep conversations. So uh, the more an activity helps me get there faster with another person, the better I actually think the whole event, the whole experience was for me. So today I want to dive into this topic a little bit and we'll explore, well, are icebreakers actually something good that we should be doing? Are they bad? Should we skip them? Should we ditch them, like I said, or Peter said in my introduction? And if we ditch them, what else can we do to increase engagement, build connections for our participants? And I think when you all signed up, most of you said that you're either running meetings or workshops. Feel free to go to the chat and just let me know, like, what type of groups do you lead? Is it really like your weekly, daily meeting with a team? Is it a workshop? Is it a training? All right, I'm seeing workshops, trainings, college courses, student sessions. All right. Webinars, conversations, all types. Joshua is a virtual event consultant. A bit of both, says Frank. All right, so it's a good mix of things. But I assume if you're working with groups, you either have come across that you should be starting with an icebreaker, or maybe you always do start with an icebreaker. And I went and looked at, so what is this thing? Let's make sure that we talk about the same thing, because icebreakers can look and feel a little bit different depending on what you do. So when you look at icebreakers, it basically is an activity, event, or a game designed to break down social barriers, make others feel more comfortable, and facilitate some kind of social interaction. That's kind of the basic definition. And if I look at this again, I actually think this is not that bad. Like, what's the problem with breaking down social barriers and making people comfortable? It sounds really great. But there's something that happens when most people facilitate icebreakers that I think is breaking more than just the ice. And I think what we'll do is we'll actually play a little activity, and I might ask for a few volunteers to come up and join me so we can experience what this feels like. Okay? And the activity that we'll pick is actually the one that will show up on the first page of Google. Actually, it will be mentioned the most in all of the blog articles that talk about top 10 icebreakers and top 50 icebreakers. What do you think is the best icebreaker activity, at least according to Google? without going to Google right now. I just want you to guess. I don't need the exact answer. Go to the chat and let me know. What do you think is the best icebreaker activity that gets mentioned? Beer, but I'm also hearing 2 truths and 1 lie a lot. Share something people don't know about you. Your last vacation. I think I have a very smart group here that either has maybe joined a workshop with me or heard me write about it in my newsletter. 2 truths and 1 lie is literally the one activity that got mentioned on 9 out of the 10 top 10 results on the first page of Google. It is an activity that, when you ask people about icebreakers, often gets recommended on part of a different facilitator communities, and it often is the first thing that gets shared. So I thought, let's play 2 truths and a lie right now. So I'll go first, and then I'll pick one other person, and after that we'll debrief and figure out, so was this great? Did this work? Did this not work? To start, here's my 3 facts. If you've never played 2 truths and a lie, the basic principle is I will share 3 facts. 2 of them are true and 1 of them is a lie, and your challenge will be to find the lie. And hold your thoughts until I shared all 3 of them, because I have a little poll to see if the majority of the people in this meeting are correct. I'll share the first one. The first one is, I took my cat on a canoe camping trip. Second one, I directed a documentary about illegal backyard chickens. Or is it number 3, I spoke at TEDx Toronto in 2018? So if you want to go to the chat right now and write A, B, or C, or actually, I think hold on, stop, pause. I see there's a lot of A's coming in. I realized I set this up on my slide differently than in Streamalive. I need you to write down 1, 2, or 3 instead of A, B, C. So let's try this again. Okay, this is looking much better. Now I see some results coming in. And we have a big majority saying the chicken documentary was the lie, closely followed by cat camping, and then TEDx talk is on 3rd place. 47% say chicken documentary, so that's almost half of everyone in here. So let's see if you were right. I did actually take my cat on a camping trip, so definitely a fact. The 42% who picked that one, unfortunately, you're wrong. Also, there is a video of this on my YouTube channel. It's the most watched video on my YouTube channel for a reason. It has a cat in it. So if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, go there and check out my video of my cat going on a canoe camping trip. And other fact, I did also direct a documentary about illegal backyard chickens in Toronto, where I followed the chicken cops, which were actually played by actors. So it was kind of like a mockumentary that tried to arrest people keeping chickens in the backyard and bribing their neighbors with eggs. What was not true is I did never speak at TEDx Toronto in 2018. I was attending TEDx Toronto in 2018, and I spoke at TEDx Calgary in 2020. So try to give you a little curveball here. These were my 3 facts. Now let's see if I can pick a random person, ideally somebody with a camera on, but maybe I'll just see if somebody wants to turn the camera on for this. And then you can share your 3 facts. Okay, some people are also turning their cameras off, which I'm going to use as a sign to just say, okay, pause right here. We're not actually playing this. I just would be curious to hear you just write a feeling that you felt in a moment where you could be randomly picked from the audience into the chat. What were the feelings that came up when this came up? Dread, nervous, also some excited, anxious, oh no, fear, please not me, please again. Right. the interesting thing is that every time I attempt this in a workshop, I get the same reaction. And the words that you just shared are actually quite similar to what you shared at the beginning. Just the whole idea of, ooh, this is anxiety inducing. This is scary of having to do an icebreaker. I actually am going to play a video that is using a different icebreaker just to give you another idea of what might be going on in somebody's head. And I want you to kind of base your reaction on, did that go on in your head as well? And then we'll explore what's actually the problem with this activity, and does this activity need to go, or can we change it a little bit to make it a bit more inclusive and engaging and welcoming for everyone? So let me pull up this video, which is from the activity Share Your Name and a Fun Fact. If you've played that activity before, you can wave into the camera. If you have your camera on, you can write a yes in the chat. It's the second most popular one, like introduce yourself and a fun fact. Also have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with it, and you'll find out why once you watch this little video here.
Go around, say your name and a fun fact.
Shit. Think of a good one.
But give me 1 second. I need to turn on something here that I forgot. All right, let's try this again.
Go around, say your name and a fun fact.
Shit. Think of a good one. I need one that makes you seem interesting but not braggadocious. Cool but not weird.
I play guitar.
God, that one was terrible. Oh no, it's getting closer. Think! Oh, I've broken my arm 3 times. Great one.
I've actually broken my arm 4 times.
No way.
That was a really good fun fact.
I hate you so much, Julia. I met Billy Ray Cyrus when I was 12. No, that sucks. You suck, Hi. Maybe no one else has any good ones either.
Jennifer Lawrence is my first cousin.
What?
Yeah. And I was actually on the set of the Hunger Games, and I was the one that came up with this.
That was you.
To do this.
Oh my god, that's so cool. That's like the coolest fun fact I've ever heard.
You?
When I don't wear enough layers, I get cold. I get chilly. When I don't wear enough layers.
I think we can just move on.
All right, so now we have 2 examples of the most popular icebreaker activities out there, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the chat. Why don't they work? Like, what's the problem with those in those 2 examples that we, like one experience and one we've watched? And I see Joshua is already sharing something, that lying about ourselves isn't easy. Yeah. The stress of having to come up with something interesting, social pressure, putting people on the spot, people thinking that my life is boring. Oh, I really like what Joanna is saying. It puts pressure on people, so we aren't present. Exactly. I actually think that there's 3 big problems with both of those icebreakers, which the first thing is it's highly competitive, right? We're trying to compare ourselves. We're trying to be the most interesting person in the room. So if you feel like I'm not that interesting, you're gonna feel a lot more anxiety in that moment. The examples that I shared of the chicken documentary and taking my cat camping, I purposefully tried to find things that are raising the bar quite high, so nobody else could say, oh, and I took my cat camping too. I took my squirrel camping. I don't know, you would have to be very creative to come up with something better. The second thing is no time to reflect, right? I did not give you time to think about your answer. And if you share your name and a fun fact, you have to come up with one thing. If you do 2 truths and a lie, you have to come up with 3 things, and one of them has to be a lie. And while you're trying to figure those things out, you're not listening, you're not paying attention to what the other people are saying. And the goal of this activity, to remind you, was for us to get to know each other better. But if we're already teaching people, okay, we're gonna reward the person who is the best liar in 2 truths and a lie. I feel like it's the opposite direction that you want to go in if you want to build trust and connection. And yes, no time to reflect, no time to pay attention, and it does feel forced, right? I think the best activities have some kind of level where people opt in, or at least they have a different choice of how they participate, how they engage. And if there is no choice and everybody has to do it and everybody has to be the center of attention in front of the whole group, I think that is what makes it a little bit more challenging. One activity that I came up with out of just hearing people talk about two truths and a lie all the time is 2 wins and 1 wish. And the way I adapted this activity a little bit is, first of all, there's always time for people to come up with their answers. Ideally, if I'm planning to run this session, this activity in a session, I would tell everyone ahead of time so they can prepare it at home. They can think of their 3 facts and then bring them to the meeting, to the workshop. The second thing is, we're not sharing truths and a lie. The goal is not to spot the lie. We're sharing 2 wins, like 2 things you've accomplished in the last year. And they don't have to be big things. They could be really small things. And 1 wish, like what is something you wish to accomplish in the next year? So we're kind of also sharing a bit of a goal, a dream with each other. And I think now the conversations that come out of this are way more supportive, because usually what happens is once you share a goal, a wish, a dream that you have, other people want to support you. Like if you share, I want to run a marathon, and somebody else in your group has run a marathon before, they might have some really good tips and like book recommendations or exercise routines that they can share. And suddenly we're collaborating. We're not trying to outsmart each other and figure out how can we make sure that other people pick the lie. And the last thing, because sharing wins, also sharing wishes, requires a little bit of vulnerability, which is one of the things that makes people connect way deeper, which I'll share in a little bit of research in a moment. People will walk away with a relationship that goes just to a much different level. Like we're not just staying on the surface. If I share my name and a fun fact, and my fun fact is, oh, I like to watch sports or whatever it is, it's a very surface level fact. If I share that one of my wishes for the next year is to be in the best shape of my life, which is actually something that I'm hoping to do before I turn 40 in a year. My birthday was yesterday, so I'm like, that's a good goal to set before this next milestone. Everybody was supporting me when I shared that yesterday. So think about the activities that you do and what can you change to make them work a little bit better. When I now think about icebreakers, I still cringe, but less so because I changed a little bit about how I talk about them. Icebreakers, if we look at the word, the breaking of the ice, I'm imagining somebody taking a sledgehammer and trying to crack the ice that a group is frozen in. It's painful, it's violent, you might hurt people. There's like potential pain in my when I visualize this. So instead of icebreakers or breaking the ice, I started thinking of, okay, how can we melt the ice instead? And how can we melt the ice by building a campfire, which is something that, number one, the biggest difference is it takes a longer time. It doesn't happen instantaneously. Because I also think that it's naive to think that one icebreaker activity can immediately break down barriers and like get people connected and build trust. All of these things take a little bit longer. So to me, it's not just about one activity. Also, one reason why I don't just replace icebreakers with IceMELTERS, and then we just change the name, but we're still doing the same thing. It's about the art of melting the ice. Again, there's a couple more steps included. And there is some research that I want to share why this works. And I will need your help with this because the research is a little bit harder to understand. So first thing, does anybody remember the movie Shrek? And if you do, what does Shrek have to do with onions? Let me know in the chat. Okay, I see Joanna and Milena have said the magic word, which is layers. Right. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. And I would say people have layers. You have to peel them to get to the center. If you really want to get to know someone, you have to kind of peel off the layers. If you just stay on the surface, that's to me the small talk. They're talking about the weather and sports and traffic, other trivial things that you don't really get to know someone. And I would argue that in some, even like work environments, organizations, you spend a lot of time with people. You see people every single day, but if all you do is stay on the surface, you never really get to know them. You don't know what wins they might have accomplished or what wishes they have for the future. So when we look at what actually makes people connect with each other, that's a really big part. And the research that I'm going to share was made really popular by this New York Times article called The 36 Questions of How to Fall in Love. If you've seen or read this article or you're familiar with it, let me know in the chat. I get sent that a lot because I created a whole deck of cards with questions on it. I love having deep conversations. But when I looked more into it, there was some research this was based on. And the research is not about people falling in love, but the way the author Arthur Aaron talks about it, it's about the development of a close relationship among peers. And this is the result that came out of this research, which I'll read to you, but probably not a lot of people will understand what this means. One key pattern associated with the development of a close relationship among peers is sustained, escalating, reciprocal, personalistic self-disclosure. And that is, number one, really hard to say, and number two, really hard to understand. That's why I would love your help and become a little human thesaurus. We'll take it line by line, and I'm going to ask you in the chat to just type in what's a different way to say this. And hopefully by the end, we have a much better understanding of this research and how this applies to creating icebreakers, ice melters, because in the end, we do want this. We do want people to build a close relationship with each other. So let's take the first word, sustained. What's a different way to say sustained? Ongoing, increasing, over time, held, constant, continued, consistent. Yeah, I think you are all right. I wrote definitely more than once. It's like a repetitive thing. It's an ongoing thing. So if we think about wanting to build connections for our participants, what does that mean? How do we actually apply this? If you want to go to the chat and just type in some ideas. And I'll give you a moment. How do you apply if you have to do something that is sustained in a icebreaker? Keep giving, right? I would say you have to, again, meet more than once. Ideally, if you want two people to connect with each other, it can't just be a one-off quick conversation. You're not going to create a close relationship with a 2-3 minute chat. So if you think about how you design meetings or workshops, if this is your goal, it might be that you meet on an ongoing basis. If you're doing a training, that's why I love running cohort-based courses. It's the same people, the same group that goes through the content together, and they keep seeing each other. So every time they see each other again, they'll go a little bit deeper. Also, if you do breakout rooms in a session and it's the same people the second time around, they'll be able to skip the small talk and go straight to more meaningful conversations. All right, let's take the second word, escalating. What's a different way to say escalating? Okay, rising, building, level up, scaling, intensifying, increasing. Yes, I think I have all of these words here as well. Also going deeper. To me, this is really what building the campfire is all about. If you think about the way you build a campfire. If there's some campers out there that actually have held a lighter to a piece of wood and tried to start a fire, or maybe even you rub two sticks together, which by the way is way harder than you would imagine. I got completely exhausted after trying for half an hour, only getting a little bit of smoke, but I never was able to start the fire. If that's you, you might know that if I just held a big log, although this is maybe even like a smaller log, if I held a lighter underneath this, nothing would happen. It wouldn't catch fire. Although it looks like it because I have the sparks flying up here right now, I just realized. Ideally, what you start burning is your paper, your tinder, something that burns very quickly and easily. Then you add your little sticks, your larger sticks, your kindling, and at the end you can put that big log on the fire, and it will actually create a beautiful, warm campfire you can sit around and share stories. So if we think about the idea of there has to be something escalating, to me it's we need to ask people to take small risks at the very beginning, and then we need to ask them to take maybe bigger risks, maybe share something a little bit deeper, a little bit more vulnerable later on. Okay, next word, reciprocal. What's a different way to say reciprocal? And okay, I'm seeing back and forth, mutual, giving, two-sided, right? Everyone participates. It's not just one person. Let's say in a conversation, if one person is driving the conversation, they're asking all of the deep, meaningful questions, and the other person responds, and they're sharing all of these stories, and like they are vulnerable. It's one-sided. It kind of feels a bit like an interrogation or like a job interview. So if we want two people to connect, we need to make sure that they're both asking questions, but both of them are also sharing answers. And to me, this is important because I think about this when I'm the facilitator, the trainer, the leader in the room. If I want other people to share something, I also need to be willing to share something. And very often you want to be the person who goes first. And if I'm vulnerable, I model what I want my participants to do as well. They'll be more likely to do it because they realize, oh, it's actually not that scary. And I talked about this already a little bit, but let's go to the chat one last time. Personalistic self-disclosure. What does that mean? What is personalistic self-disclosure? Sounds like a Beatles song. Revealing something about yourself, says Talia. Vulnerability. Yes, I would say this is sharing vulnerable stories or just in general like personal information, which can be tricky in certain like teams and work environments. Like you're not sure how much you can share. But the truth is, if you want to connect with someone and they never share anything personal, it's not really going to work. So when, again, I think about, okay, what about all of these things can we do to make our activities better, our sessions more engaging? How can we connect our participants better? It really is inviting them to, number one, share personal stories. And I love, like, storytelling is such a great tool, especially when you design questions for people to answer in breakout rooms. Asking for memories or stories will always get them to share something a little bit more vulnerable. They still have the choice of how deep they go, rather than just kind of answering factual questions or open, closed-ended questions. And the other thing is, it should invite vulnerability, shouldn't force it, because vulnerability is an interesting concept where it's different for everyone. What is vulnerable for one person might be totally okay for somebody else to share right in the beginning. And what is very easy for you to share might be really, really uncomfortable for someone else. So it's a topic that we have to approach with lots of empathy, lots of care, and again, invite people to go a little bit deeper, but not overshare either, because the deepest connections happen when we travel at the same speed. So if we're taking, again, the campfire methodology, And let's say one person, they're building their campfire really quickly and they're like, oh, I'm already putting my big log on the fire, I'm already sharing something really vulnerable, and the other person is still trying to figure out how the lighter works, they're not going to connect. But if we kind of slow down this person a bit and say like, hey, how about you help each other figure out how the lighter works, you build a fire together at the same speed, that's where I think that you really will feel the impact that is happening. And with this, I'm hoping that it's becoming clear that one single icebreaker activity, ice melter activity, we can't really expect that to break down barriers and forge instant bonds. All of this process takes a little bit more time. And that's exactly what I will be writing about in my book, what I'm designing a course around right now. And the last thing that I want to leave you today is a process on how to pick better activities. Again, this is not everything that you can do to melt the ice. I've realized since researching this like a year and a half ago that there's way more nuances and smaller details about how you facilitate it, but how you introduce it, what examples you give, what do you do the first couple of moments when somebody comes into the Zoom room. Like today, we asked you to check in on a map. Very different from maybe another meeting that you've attended where somebody said, all right, let's just wait until everybody's here and then we'll get started. Because what happens then is people start multitasking, they start replying to emails, and once you're ready to go, you're going to have a really hard time to bring them back on the screen and actually have them engage. So like I said, last thing that I want to share with you today is 3 steps to keep in mind when you're picking any activity. So this could be the activity that you do right when people come into the room or join your Zoom meeting. Could also be an activity that helps you transition from one topic to the next topic, or from what people did before the meeting and relating it to the theme, the topic, the purpose of the session of why they're here. And let's see, these are the three steps: research your blank, align to your blank, and adjust for blank. And we'll go through those one at a time. But to make it a little bit more fun, I'm going to have you guess in the chat what each one of them means, starting with this first one. Research your what? What should you research? And this is in the design process before you even start. Okay, audience, group, culture, tribe, crowd. All of you correct. Yes, research your group. Because the more I know about who's going to show up and who's part of it, the more I can adjust and find something that is valuable and relevant for them. And when I think about the group, there's three main questions that I like to ask myself in the beginning. These are the 3. The first one is location. Like, is this happening in person or is this happening virtually? Because that will very drastically determine, can I do an activity that involves people walking around the room, or do I have to do something where everybody's on their own screen? Or is it maybe hybrid and we get like a mix of people, a couple of people sharing a screen, or everybody's in person, but one person is calling in on the phone? The second thing is familiarity. Like, how well do people know each other? And this is a big one, because if I have all strangers that have never met each other before, of course, my purpose of this session might be more around people getting to know each other, people building trust with each other. But if it's a team that has worked together for a long time, then maybe the activity is more around helping them go a little bit deeper or more focused on the topic of the session. And then the last scale is what I call playfulness. Like, is a group more on the serious side on the left or more on the silly side on the right? Again, helps me figure out, are they open to playing games, or is this more like conversation starters, doing something that doesn't require them to step outside of their comfort zone as much? Of course, I'm always, like, based on my own values, going to advocate for leaning more to the to this side, to the silly side. But knowing my group, I know where to start. Like, I'm not going to start all the way on the right side if I expect this is to be a group of executives that usually wear suits, They're all kind of senior level, older generation, and yeah, they've never done a playful workshop before. So I'm going to start on a very different part of this. And I actually put all of this information, at least, into a little matrix I called the familiarity playfulness matrix, because that basically creates these different quadrants where an activity could be placed. So again, if it is strangers, it might be more introductory activities. If it's friends or really well-connected team members, like on the top, it might be more depth. If it's more serious, it's more conversation starters. If it's more silly, maybe more games and movement activities. And I'll share some activities at the end of this based on what you're interested in. But for right now, we'll move to the second one. Oh, I already revealed it. Align to your session. Very good guess. Everybody got it correct. Aligning to the session to me is really important because there's on one hand a session theme, an outcome that I'm hoping to achieve. If you're working with a group, maybe it is around solving a specific problem. Maybe it is learning or teaching a skill. Maybe it is managing a conflict. So there's an overarching theme, but then each activity or each element in there also has a different purpose. So a purpose for an activity right at the beginning could be just to make sure people transition from a busy workday and get present and turn off their phones and kind of remove the distractions. And at a later point in the session, the purpose could be, okay, how do we take the things that we learned and we put it into action? So we have to keep both of those things in mind when we're designing an activity. And this is the one that I think will make all of the people who say, oh, I don't like icebreakers because it just feels like this random activity, this random game I have to play at the beginning of my session, but I don't really see the purpose behind it. If you align it to the purpose and you share that as you're introducing it, you're going to get a lot more buy-in from your participants. And the third thing, unfortunately, also revealed itself already while I was chatting with you, adapt for restrictions. So these are other things that I want to find out about my group and maybe the environment that will determine what type of activities I can do. So these are things like the group size, the time that you have available, but also how big is the space? Or if you're in a virtual space on Zoom, like what engagement tools do I have access to here versus Microsoft Teams, where you might have to do different things. And the last thing is accessibility needs. Going back to knowing what your participants need, knowing your group, you can adjust for that. I recently had a person that was blind join one of my trainings around where I kind of taught these frameworks around melting the ice. And I needed to make sure that I describe everything that people can see on the screen, or I would ask other people to describe what they see on the screen. I needed to make sure that all my slides had the alternative text for images. If I didn't know that, and that was a surprise, then I would have not been able to create the best experience for that participant. So the more you know about your group, number one, the more you can align your activities to the purpose of the session, and the more you can adapt for any other restrictions that you have, the more likely you'll get people to buy in, they're going to participate, they're going to engage, and then in the end, all the activities will support that bigger outcome, and you can actually get more things done in your session. All right, I think I'm going to pause right here for if there's any questions, and I'm going to also check Stream Alive, which has a tool where all the questions get summarized that I might have missed in the chat. And then I'll leave you with some activity ideas in the end. But if you have a question, feel free to put that into the chat right now. And I'm going to check in here. Actually, I think a lot of the questions that came up in here in Stream Alive are not the ones that we probably want. Let me see if I can change that a little bit here. Oh, question. I don't think any of these questions are actually questions. That's all things that you shared about icebreakers earlier. So let me know if there is any questions. All right, I can see. Repeat the matrix of friends and strangers. I will get to that because we'll use that to pick an activity. And Tina is asking, how do you evaluate an audience's playfulness? Great question. I'm going to reverse that question and send it back to everybody on this Zoom call. How do you figure out how playful a group is? What would be your strategy? Share something in the chat. Pedro is saying 3 letters, ask, which I think is the easiest way to do it. Of course, it depends on who, like what type of group it is. Yeah, Jen also says, as a consultant, I just ask the contacts. Yeah, if somebody hires you to work with a group, like when I work with an organization or a team, I usually ask the person hiring me or the HR person, whoever is responsible, to give me, like, this is a spectrum. This is not like, are they serious or are they silly? It's not like a black and white. It's a spectrum. Like, where would you put them on like a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being serious and 10 being silly? Where would they fall? And I had that conversation last week, and the person said it really depends on the person. Like, there's some people who are going to be totally open to do like a 7 or 8, but there's also these 3 people that might be a 1 or 2. And like, great information. It doesn't have to be like an exact number, but knowing that there's a few people who are really skeptical and a few people who are bought in really helps me to prepare for that. And I'm seeing there's a couple more things in the chat. One thing that I also like to do is ask in an intake form if it is all kinds of people joining individually. I like to have that part of the intake form. What else? Playing a little game. I think I saw somebody share that in the beginning, right? A lot of it has to do with trying something and then adjusting on the fly. I have activities that go a lot deeper that I've kind of abandoned halfway through because I realized the group's not ready for it. If somebody wants to know, it involved people making eye contact with each other, which is very vulnerable for some people. And we did it for 15 seconds, and there was supposed to be a second round for a little bit longer, but I adjusted, and there was just the 15 seconds and then no more eye contact for the rest of the activity. So knowing how to read a group becomes really important here. Okay, and there was one more question. Is there a list somewhere that you like? Was that, Frank, depending on activities that I like? Hold on, you are, yes, perfect. I do have a blog post where I share the top 3 icebreaker activities and what I would do instead, including the 2 truths and a lie. I can pull that up from my blog, or if somebody from the Stream Alive team wants to go to my blog, I think it's my most recent article, you can post that into the chat. Okay, with the last little time.
There's a question here, Jan, from
Yeah.
Erin in the chats.
I might have missed that. How do you build buy-in for changing the status norm of practicing round icebreakers? I see most people fail to prepare them and then have an oh crud moment, and they pull out an old faithful icebreaker they've been doing their whole career. Expectations is everything. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is people don't like to be surprised if they have to engage or participate in a way that they weren't expecting. And I see this, some of the examples are if people expect something to be a webinar and you're logging into a session and you're like, okay, I'm in my pajamas, I'm gonna do some laundry and I'll just have this on in the background. And then suddenly it's, okay, we're going to go to breakout rooms and you're going to please turn on your cameras. You're going to partner up with someone. You're going to share some stories or answer a question. That's when you see people drop off the call. They're like, no, I'm out of here. I was not expecting that. I was not ready for this. I was just going to listen in. I was not ready to engage and prepare. So the more we can give our groups some expectations of what's about to happen, I think the easier it is to get their buy-in. And I usually send out a video message ahead of time to all my groups, which gives them a little bit of an introduction to me. So I'm not a complete stranger when I show up, even if it is in person. And I set some expectations of how it's going to work. So I hope that helps. All right, last slide that I wanted to bring up again, activity ideas. I have it organized in that matrix for familiarity and for playfulness. And if I go back to my slide, let me just see can you read some of those things on the slide? I'm not sure. Somebody mentioned something about resolution not being so great. I see somebody nodding heads. If you want to type in any of the activities on here, okay, if you want to name any of the activities that you're like, ooh, I'm curious about this, let me know in the chat. Okay, I can see dog, cat, mouse, and yes, dinner. Let's just go to those two. I can share them really quickly, but also if you are not yet subscribed to my newsletter, that's where I share a lot more activities and tips around this. So I'll drop a link for that as well. If you want some more, you can find some of them here, including the 2 wishes and 2 wins and 1 wish that I shared. All right, dog, cat, mouse, really quickly. This is an activity that helps you with inspiring creativity, solving problems, and the basic idea is you get each participant to draw a dog, a cat, and a mouse. Very simple. Doesn't have to be artistic. They don't have to show it to anyone necessarily, but you just set up a timer for 30 seconds. Everybody draws a dog, then everybody draws a cat, and then everybody draws a mouse. And at the end you ask, so why did nobody draw a computer mouse? Because I just asked you to draw a mouse, but most likely 99% will be drawing a mouse because we think in patterns. And when you start off in a certain way, you're going to continue in the same direction. So that's a great activity if this relates to your content, if that's a lesson that you might want to give people. And what was the other one that was shared in the chat? Yes, dinner. Yes, dinner is also a activity that I love. It helps with managing conflict, solving problems, making decisions. And it is from the applied improvisation kind of industry. So it's using some improv principles where the group or smaller groups have to come up with a dinner party, the perfect dinner party. And in the first round, everybody can bring in ideas. And whenever somebody brings up an idea, everybody else's response is going to be, no, that's not going to work. You do the same thing again, second round, people come up with ideas. And this time everybody responds with, yeah, but, and then come up with a reason why it's not going to work. And in the third round, they're going to say yes, and they're going to add something to that first idea. And after each round, you kind of take a moment to check in and see how people were feeling. And you realize that in the first round, where everybody's just like, no, nothing is happening. You're not actually creating any ideas. In the second round, where everybody responds with yes, but, people realize, hey, yes, but is actually the same as no. Nothing gets done, and it actually feels even worse when your ideas get shut down with a yes first, and then it's a but no. And then in round 3, ideally, people realize, okay, there's a lot more happening. And just having that mindset when before you're doing a brainstorm is going to be really useful to get people to engage and participate. All right, Peter, I'm going to check in with you because we only have a couple minutes left. and we still have something to do because I see there's more questions, but I might not have time to get through all of them.
Okay. I just had one quick question, which is how much time would you dedicate to an ice melter in a workshop for a group of strangers?
So because I don't think that one activity is going to solve all of your problems, I think it's the wrong question to ask.
Okay.
It really depends on what you're hoping people to walk away with from the workshop and how long the workshop itself is, right? I usually like to plan an activity for the first 5 minutes as people are logging in. That could already be the first part of an ice melter. Then you do your official welcome and introduce whatever the topic is, and then you might do another activity that helps people relate to the theme and the purpose a little bit more. And I might do something else later on. But I would say you want to have more time than most people plan for to just create this journey. To me, this is like an experience design approach. If I think of the campfire methodology, like what are my first sparks, my tinder that I'll ignite in the beginning, and how many layers do I need to put on top of that to get to where I want to end up at the end? Like what's the goal at maybe the last third of the session that I want to end up on? And then, of course, you have to adjust based on the group. Yes, let's do a winner. We have a prize to give away. And for this, we're going to spin the wheel for everyone who has commented. Are we ready to do this, Peter?
Absolutely.
All right. And one prize that I put together. Oh, hold on. It's already spinning. It's already spinning, and I'm not showing it yet. Okay, we're gonna restart this. Hold on. I'm not even gonna look who it shows. And 1 second. My mouse disappeared. Now. Okay, the winner is going to get one of the art of melting the ice courses, Marie Alex Dali. If you can make yourself known, if you have your camera on, say hi. If you are there in the chat, let me know, because I will need your email address to make sure that I can send you the details of how to access that. It's a course that I'm currently launching that is available for pre-sale because it's going to launch next month, and it's kind of the companion to my book. And I saw a few people were asking about the book, so I'm going to share the link in there in the chat. All right, Marie is here. Amazing, congratulations. Please send a private message with your email address to me so I can send you all the details on how to access that. And here's the link to sign up for my newsletter, which is going out once a week, and I share some idea, concept, framework from my book about this art of melting the ice. All right, I think I'm going to pass it back to you, Peter, and thank you, Tatiana and Said, for vouching for the newsletter. I saw that earlier.
Jan, thank you so much. That was really interesting. I think that's going to change the way we approach the meetings that we have and also the workshops that we run as well. I just love the idea that your analogies as well, like the huge log, and you're trying to get a tiny little lighter to get it to light up. Really, really interesting. Thank you so much. These workshops are ones that we do every couple of weeks. So we have a workshop coming up in a couple of weeks with Miriam Hadness. If you've seen any of her work on Never Done Before, that's really interesting. She's going to be also talking about how you can make your town halls become engaging and two-way conversations rather than just having your management talk at all of your employees. We also have Syed, who's on this webinar right now. Syed, give it a little wave. He's also doing a workshop for us as well. So we're very, very excited to have him. If you enjoyed some of the interactions that Jan did, that was all powered using Streamer Live. So you can check it out on streamerlive.com. And we look forward to having you all again in a couple of weeks for the next workshop. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jan.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. If you want to share anything else in the chat, any takeaways, any thanks, put them in there. And hopefully I'll see you on LinkedIn or in my newsletter.